Learn about the world. Portugal. Portugal is a country on the Iberian Peninsula in southwestern Europe. It is the westernmost country in mainland Europe, bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the west and south and Spain to the north and east. The Portugal-Spain border is 1,214 kilometers long and is considered the longest uninterrupted border in the European Union. The Azores and Madeira Islands are also part of Portugal. Basic information. Full name, Portuguese Republic. Government type, Constitutional Republic. ISO, PT, PRT. Country code, PT. Time zone, 0100 telephone code, +351. Capital, Lisbon. Major cities, Faro. Porto. Largest municipalities in Portugal, Lisbon, Sintra, Vila Nova de Gaia, Porto, Cascais, Loures, Braga, Almada, Matosinhos, Eiras, Seixal, Gondomar, Guimarães, Odivelas, Coimbra, Maia, Santa Maria da Feira, Vila Franca da Xira, Vila Nova da Famalicão. Area, 92,391 square kilometers. Terrain, mountainous in the north, plains in the center and south. Climate, temperate. Average annual temperature 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Population, 10,109,237, 2025. Religion, Roman Catholic, 97%. Language, Portuguese. Natural resources, fish ore, tungsten ore, iron ore, copper, tin, and uranium. Agriculture, products, forestry, fisheries, cork, wine. Agricultural products, grains, potatoes, olives, grapes, sheep, cattle, goats, poultry, beef, dairy products. Industries, textiles and footwear, wood pulp, paper and cork, metals, petroleum refining, chemicals, canned fish, wine, tourism. Exports, agricultural products, food, wine, petroleum products, chemical products. Plastics and rubber, leather, wood, cork and wood products, pulp and paper, textiles, clothing, footwear, machinery and tools. Base metals export partners, Spain, France, Germany, UK, USA, Angola. Netherlands. Imports, agricultural products, chemical products, other means of transport and materials, optical and precision instruments, computer parts and components. Semiconductors and related equipment, petroleum products, base metals, food, textiles import partners, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, Netherlands. Currency, Euro. Foreign relations of Portugal are linked with its historical role as a major player in the Age of Discovery and the holder of the now defunct Portuguese Empire. Portugal is a European Union member country and a founding member of NATO. It is a committed proponent of European integration and transatlantic relations. João Gomes Cravino is the current Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal. Historically, the focus of Portuguese diplomacy has been to preserve its independence, vis-a-vis the danger of annexation by Spain, and the maintenance of the Anglo-Portuguese alliance, which officially came into being in 1386, and with the United Kingdom as a successor to England. It is still in place today. Other goals have also been constant, such as the political stability of the Iberian Peninsula and the affirmation of Portuguese interests in Europe and the Atlantic, also in the Indian and Pacific Oceans throughout different moments in history. Portugal was a founding member of NATO, 1949, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, 1961, and European Free Trade Area, 1960. It left the latter in 1986 to join the European Economic Community, which would become the European Union (EU) in 1993. In 1996, it co-founded the Community of Portuguese-Language Countries, CPLP. The country is a member state of the United Nations since 1955. Recently, the primacy of the United States and intergovernmental organizations such as NATO and the United Nations have also been paramount in the affirmation of Portugal abroad. Portugal has been a significant beneficiary of the EU, only behind Spain and Greece in absolute terms, and behind Ireland and Greece in a per capita basis. Portugal is a proponent of European integration and held the presidency of the European Union for the second time during the first half of 2000, and again in the second half of 2007. Portugal used its term to launch a dialogue between the EU and Africa and to begin to take steps to make the European economy dynamic and competitive. In 2002, the euro began to circulate as Portugal's currency. José Sócrates, as Prime Minister of Portugal, presided over the rotative presidency of the Council of the European Union for the period July to December 2007. In this post, Sócrates and his team focused on the EU-Brazil, First EU-Brazil Summit, and EU-African Union, 2007 Africa-EU Summit, relations. As well as in the approval of the Treaty of Lisbon. It is an active member of the alliance by, for example, contributing proportionally large contingents in Balkan peacekeeping forces. Portugal proposed the creation of the Community of Portuguese-Language Countries, CPLP, to improve its ties with other Portuguese-speaking countries. Additionally, Portugal has participated, along with Spain, in a series of Ibero-American Summit. Portugal held the chairmanship of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, for the year 2002. The chairman in office was Portuguese Foreign Minister António Martins da Cruz. Portugal holds claim to the disputed territory of Olivenca on the Portugal-Spain border. Except for a short period of time following the Second World War, Japan and Portugal have enjoyed good relations. In 1993, both countries organized and held a variety of events to commemorate the 450th anniversary of the Portuguese arrival in Japan. In the same year, Their Imperial Highnesses Prince and Princess Takamado made an official visit to Portugal, and the then-President Mário Soares visited Japan as a state guest. From May 23 to 25, Their Imperial Majesties the Emperor and Empress made their first visit to Portugal during their trip to Europe. In 2010, Japan and Portugal celebrated the 150th anniversary of the Treaty of Peace, Amity and Commerce, and in 2013, in the occasion of the 470th anniversary of the initial contact between Japan and Portugal, both countries held various events to celebrate and strengthen their friendship. In 2019, exports from Japan to Portugal totaled €59.9 billion, and imports from Portugal to Japan totaled €80.3 billion. The main export items from Japan to Portugal are automobiles and auto parts, machinery, electrical equipment, rubber manufactures, precision instruments, processed oils, fats and waxes, non-ferrous metals, manufactures of metal, textile yarn, fabrics, organic chemicals, and plastic materials. Several countries have ambassadors accredited to Portugal, with most being resident in Paris. Portugal maintains diplomatic relations with 190 countries. Human rights. Portugal is generally considered as successful in upholding the civil liberties and protecting the human rights of its citizens. Portugal has proved to be determined in promoting and respecting human rights at an international and national level. The country's Minister of Justice as of September 2018, Francisca van Dunham, said that Portugal has had a good track record on human rights, but violations still do persist. Portugal is a member state of the European Union and therefore its citizens are protected by its Charter of Fundamental Rights. In addition to being a member of the European Union, Portugal is also a member state of the United Nations and has signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on January 1, 1986. Portugal formally joined the European Union after applying to join on March 28, 1977. Portugal has signed and ratified, so therefore made a legal commitment to abide by certain standards of behavior. In 1990, Portugal became a signatory and ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Following this, they also signed and ratified the optional protocols to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on the involvement of children in armed conflict, on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography in 2003. In 2013, they then signed and ratified the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on a communications procedure. Signing and ratifying the convention and the optional protocols has caused an increase in resources allocated to improving the rights of children in Portugal. Although there have been improvements, there are still serious issues affecting children's rights. 1 in 5 of children, 20%, live below the poverty line, and Portugal is one of the top 8 countries with the highest poverty levels among children. Portugal has become a new route for sub-Saharan African criminal networks to traffic children into the Schengen area for sexual exploitation. The ECPAT International's global study in 2016 discovered that Portugal was becoming an increasingly popular travel destination for child sex offenders. The Portuguese laws that are in place to combat this issue come under Article 160(2) of the Penal Code and states the punishments of prison sentences from 3 to 10 years for the offense of child trafficking for the purpose of exploitation, including sexual exploitation. Although these measures are in place, a draft law on the creation of a national strategy which would protect children against sexual exploitation and abuse was submitted to the Assembly but not adopted. The LGBT community in Portugal benefited when Portugal joined the European Union on 1 January 1986. This benefited the community through being in contact with freedoms that were enjoyed in other countries that were members of the EU. After the decriminalization of homosexuality, there was an emergence of LGBT organizations and gay rights groups in the 1990s in Portugal. Since 1982, Portugal progressed quickly in legal advances in protecting and upholding the rights of the LGBT community. It was in 2001 that they acknowledged civil unions for same-sex couples. Then in 2004 they introduced constitutional rights that explicitly forbid discrimination that is based on someone's sexual orientation and are one of the few countries in the world to include this in their constitution. In 2010 they also legalized same-sex marriage, being the 9th country in the world to do so at the time. 6 years after this they also legalized the adoption of children by same-sex couples. Relative to the rest of the world's countries, Portugal has been acknowledged as progressive with the rights of the LGBT community. More recently, in April 2018, the Portuguese Parliament approved a law which allows transgender people to have their preferred gender legally recognized by government without having to be diagnosed as mentally ill. Portugal are one of only 6 European nations to allow this. With this bill, they also banned the unnecessary surgery on intersex infants, which can cause lifelong pain, health complications and loss of sexual sensation. The ILGA Portugal, which is a private social solidarity institution which protects the rights of the LGBT community within Portugal, awarded the Rainbow Prize to the Judicial Police College for its training program focusing on the discrimination against LGBT persons. The Commission on the Status of Women, renamed the Commission for Equality and Women's Rights in 1991, had the role to improve the position of women in Portugal and protect their rights. This was established in 1977. Then 20 years later the Council of Ministers integrated a gender perspective at all policy levels, and since then several national plans for equality have been issued. In the Gender Equality Index 2017, which uses a scale from 1, full inequality, to 100, full equality, Portugal scored a 56, which is 10 points lower than the European Union average. Transport in Portugal is diversified. Portugal has a 68,732 kilometers, 42,708 miles network of roads, of which almost 3,000 kilometers, 1,864 miles, are part of a 44 motorways system. Brisa is the largest highway management concessionaire. With 89,015 square kilometers, continental Portugal has 4 international airports located near Lisbon, Porto, Faro and Beja. The national railway system service is provided by Comboios de Portugal. The major seaports are located in Leixões, Aveiro, Figueira da Foz, Lisbon, Setúbal, Sines and Faro. Portugal has a 68,732 kilometers, 42,708 miles road network, of which almost 3,000 kilometers, 1,864 miles, are part of system of 44 motorways. On many highways, a toll needs to be paid. Vasco da Gama Bridge is the longest bridge in the EU, the second longest in Europe, at 12.345 kilometers, 7.671 miles. The highway would become a crucial link to the industrial activity in the north of the country and experience the highest traffic volumes in Brisa's network. Construction also began on the A2, which was projected to reach from Lisbon to resort areas on the southern coast. As the first highway sections were completed on the A1 and A2, the government concession was expanded to include adjoining stretches. In addition, concessions were granted for expansions to the network. The A3 would extend the north-south highway from Porto up to the Spanish border. The A4 would reach east from Porto to the city of Amarante. And the A5 was to reach from Lisbon about 25 miles, 40 kilometers, west to the coast. Continental Portugal's 89,015 square kilometers, 34,369 square miles, territory is serviced by 4 international airports located near the principal cities of Lisbon, Porto, Faro and Beja. Lisbon's geographical position makes it a stopover for many foreign airlines at several airports within the country. The primary flag carrier is TAP Air Portugal. Although many other domestic airlines provide services within and without the country, the most important airports are in Lisbon, Porto, Faro, Funchal, Madeira, and Ponta Delgada, Azores. Managed by the National Airport Authority Group ANA, Aeroportos de Portugal. A new airport to replace the current Lisbon airport has been planned for more than 50 years. But it has been always postponed by a series of reasons. A national railway system that extends throughout the country and into Spain is supported and administered by Comboios de Portugal, CP. Rail transport of passengers and goods is derived using the 2,791 kilometers, 1,734 miles, of railway lines currently in service, of which 1,430 kilometers, 889 mi, are electrified and about 900 kilometers, 559 mi, allow train speeds greater than 120 kilometers per hour, 75 miles per hour. The railway network is managed by Infraestruturas de Portugal, while the transport of passengers and goods are the responsibility of CP, both public companies. In 2006, the CP carried 133 million passengers and 9,750,000 tons, 9,600,000 long tons. 10,700,000 short tons of goods. Lisbon's geographical position makes it a stopover point for many foreign airlines at airports all over the country. The government decided to build a new airport outside Lisbon, in Montijo, to replace Lisbon Portela Airport. Currently, the most important airports are in Lisbon, Porto, Faro, Funchal, Madeira, and Ponta Delgada, Azores. The national airline is TAP Air Portugal. The major seaports are located in Sines, Leixões, Lisbon, Setúbal, Aveiro, Figueira da Foz, and Faro. The two largest metropolitan areas have subway systems, Lisbon Metro and Metro Sul do Tejo light rail system in the Lisbon metropolitan area, and Porto Metro light metro system in the Porto metropolitan area, each with more than 35 kilometers (22 miles) of lines. Coimbra is currently developing a bus rapid transit system, Metro Mondego, as is the Algarve Metrobus. In Portugal, Lisbon tram services have been supplied by the Companhia de Carris de Ferro de Lisboa, Carris, for over a century. In Porto, a tram network, of which only a tourist line on the shores of the Douro remains, began construction on 12 September 1895, a first for the Iberian Peninsula. All major cities and towns have their own local urban transport network, as well as taxi services. Rail transport in Portugal is provided mainly by Comboios de Portugal, CP, Portugal's national carrier, but also other operators. It includes high-speed trains and rapid transit networks in Lisbon and Porto. There are rail links with Spain, which uses the same Iberian broad gauge. Some lines are in meter gauge. Several railway companies operate in Portugal: Comboios de Portugal, Fertigas, Lisbon Metro, Porto Metro, Metro Transportes do Sul. Infraestruturas de Portugal is the rail network administrating company, taking over control from Refer on 1 June 2015. The length of Portugal's railway system is 2,786 kilometers, 1,731 miles total. Education. The educational system is divided into preschool, for those under age 6, basic education, 9 years in 3 stages, compulsory, secondary education, 3 years. Compulsory since 2010, and higher education, subdivided in university and polytechnic education. Education in Portugal is free and compulsory until the age of 18, when students usually complete their year 12. However, only one of those requirements is necessary. The education is regulated by the state through the Ministry of Education. There is a system of public education and also many private schools at all levels of education. The first Portuguese medieval universities, such as the University of Coimbra, were created in the 13th century, and the national higher education system is fully integrated into the European higher education area. The basic literacy rate of the Portuguese population is 99.44, 99.48% male, 99.38% female. Aged 15 to 24. According to INE, Portuguese Institute for National Statistics, only 3.7 million Portuguese workers, 67% of the working active population, completed basic education. 81% of the working population attained the lower basic level of education and 12% attained the intermediate level of education. According to the Programme for International Student Assessment, PISA, 2018, the average Portuguese 15-year-old student, when rated in terms of reading literacy, mathematics and science knowledge, near above the OECD's average. Although, with a sharp downwards trend, universities are usually organized into faculties. Institutes and schools are also common designations for autonomous subdivisions of Portuguese higher education institutions. Higher education in state-run educational establishments is provided on a competitive basis. A system of numerus clausus is enforced through a national database on student admissions. However, every higher education institution offers also a number of additional vacant places through other extraordinary admission processes for sportsmen, mature applicants, over 23 years old, international students, foreign students from the Lusosphere, degree owners from other institutions, students from other institutions, academic transfer, former students, readmission, and course change, which are subject to specific standards and regulations set by each institution or course department. The total adult literacy rate in Portugal was 99.8% in 2021, according to the Programme for International Student Assessment, PISA, 2018. Portugal scored around the OECD average in reading, mathematics and science. In reading and mathematics, mean performance in 2018 was close to the level observed in 2009 to 2015. In science, mean performance in 2018 was below that of 2015, and returned close to the level observed in 2009 and 2012. Near below average. About 47.6% of college-age citizens, 20 years old, attend one of Portugal's higher education institutions, compared with 50% in the United States and 35% in the OECD on average. In addition to being a destination for international students, Portugal is also among the top places of origin for international students. Most student costs are supported with public money. Portugal has entered into cooperation agreements with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and other U.S. institutions to further develop and increase the effectiveness of Portuguese higher education and research. Each school year starts in mid-September and ends in mid-June. There are 3 holiday breaks during the year: Christmas break, 2 weeks, Carnival break, 3 days, and Easter break, 2 weeks. The school year is divided in 3 terms, usually limited by the following dates. First term, from the 15th to the 21st of September to the end of the second week of December. Second term, from the first Monday of January, after January 1st, which is a national holiday, to 2 weeks before Easter. Third term, from the Monday right after Easter to the second half of June, first half of July. The first years ending school are 9th, 11th and 12th. Since they have national exams, they end school usually 1 week earlier than 7th, 8th and 10th grades. Kids from 1st to 6th grade usually leave school 2 weeks after years 7, 8 and 10. And 3 weeks after years 9, 11 and 12. After the end of the third term, there are national exams during June and July for students in 9th, 11th and 12th years, and measurement exams in 2nd, 5th and 8th years. Children from 4 months, the usual maternity leave, until they are 3 years old may frequent a nursery. Pre-primary education is optional from the ages of 3 to 5 and is provided in both state-run and private kindergarten schools. Basic education lasts for 9 years divided into 3 stages of 4, 2 and 3 years respectively. In Portugal, basic education consists of 9 years of schooling divided into 3 sequential cycles of education of 4, 2 and 3 years. In the 9th year the student has to choose between visual education, technological education, music and drama. Healthcare. Portugal's National Health Service is responsible for providing healthcare services in public hospital institutions. The healthcare system in Portugal is universal and is made up of 3 coexisting systems: the National Health Service, special social health insurance schemes for certain professions, health subsystems, and private health insurance. The Ministry of Health is responsible for developing national health policy, as well as managing the health subsystems. The health regulatory entity is the independent public entity responsible for regulating the activity of all healthcare providers, whether public, private or social. In 2020, 10.6% of total government expenditure in Portugal is allocated to health, in comparison to 10.9% in the European Union. This value has a direct relation with the reduction of child and infant mortality rate, maternal ratio, improvement of the national healthcare system, allowing it to be free, universal and accessible to all residents in Portugal. The Portuguese healthcare system was ranked number 12 in overall performance by the World Health Organization in a 2000 report ranking the healthcare systems of each of the 190 United Nations member nations. Nonetheless, it ranked number 27 as the most expensive per capita healthcare system. The healthcare system in Portugal has been submitted to significant transformations over the past years, leading to significant improvements in health indicators such as life expectancy, child mortality rates, and the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, NCDs. Life expectancy in Portugal is estimated to be 82.55 years, reflecting advancements in healthcare access and quality. Infant and child mortality rates have reduced over the years, aligning the country performance with the improvements observed across Europe. There are, however, challenges, such as the increasing burden of non-communicable diseases, including cardiovascular diseases and neoplasms. Furthermore, Portugal is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, which leads to new risks to public health. The country is expected to experience frequent heatwaves, decrease of the air quality, and the potential spread of vector-borne diseases with direct implications on the population. Facing these challenges, the Portuguese National Health Service plays a crucial role in addressing these challenges, ensuring universal healthcare coverage that allow the population easier access to healthcare. According to the World Bank income level classification, Portugal is considered a high-income country. In 2022, Portugal registered a total of 10,270,873 inhabitants with an expected decrease of 9.8% to 9,261,313 by 2050. The World Health Organization, WHO, estimates that 12.3% of the population is between 0 to 14 years, 68.2% is estimated to be 15 to 64 years and 19.5% is expected to be 65+ years old. Life expectancy in Portugal has improved significantly over the years. The latest data from the World Health Organization, WHO, indicates an average of 81.2 years for all the population. The overall for women is 83.9 years and 78.3 years for men. Child mortality rate has decreased over the past 5 decades. Only 1.5% were affected, and in 2021 only 0.3% die before being 5 years old. Regarding infant mortality rate, IMR, from 1970 to 2021 has also decreased, from 5.5% to 0.3%. In similarity, the European and world average has followed the same pattern. The European rate went from 1.3% in 1990 to 0.4% in 2021, and the world rate from 6.4% in 1990 to 2.8% in 2021. Much of the progress has to do with the improvement of the healthcare system, development of vaccination programs, public health campaigns and education, as well, the economic growth in Portugal. The maternal mortality ratio in Portugal from 1990 to 2020 had a slight decrease from 15 to 12 respectively. However, the average of the European and world ratio had a significant improvement, from 34 to 8 in Europe and 370 to 212 in the world. By 2021, the global burden of disease, GBD, in Portugal was mainly attributed to non-communicable diseases. being these responsible for 88% of total deaths in the country and 86% of total disability-adjusted life years, dailies. The same has happened to communicable, maternal, neonatal and nutritional diseases in terms of number of deaths, 4.76% of total deaths in 1990, but a decrease in the number of dailies has been observed since 1990, 7.05% of total dailies. In 2021, 7 out of 10 most common causes of death in Portugal were non-communicable diseases. Of these 7 causes of death, cardiovascular diseases were responsible for 26.54%. Being ischemic heart disease and stroke the cardiovascular diseases costing more lives in the country. Cardiovascular diseases also represent a major cause of disability in the country. In fact, many causes of death in the country are also responsible for a significant degree of disability. However, musculoskeletal and mental disorders are also important to consider. Sports in Portugal are important in Portuguese culture. High-profile, successful competitive athleticism and sportsmanship in Portugal can be traced back to the time of ancient Rome. Football is the most popular sport in Portugal. Other than football, many other professional or semi-professional well-organized sport competitions take place every season in Portugal, including basketball, swimming, athletics, tennis, gymnastics, futsal, rink hockey, team handball, volleyball, surfing, canoeing and rugby union championships among the hundreds of sports played in this country, the major Portuguese professional sports leagues. Championships and events include, in no particular order, Portuguese Football Championship, Cup of Portugal, Taça da Liga and Supertaça in football, Portuguese Futsal First Division in futsal, Portuguese Basketball League in basketball, Portuguese Roller Hockey First Division in rink hockey, Portuguese Handball League in handball, Campeonato Português de Rugby in rugby, Volleyball League A1 in volleyball, Campeonato de Futebol de Praia in beach soccer, Volta a Portugal in cycling, Rally of Portugal in rallying, Race of Portugal in touring car racing. Other popular sport-related recreational outdoor activities with thousands of enthusiasts nationwide include airsoft, golf, hiking, orienteering, and bullfighting. Football is the most popular sport in Portugal, and the country has produced footballers who became known worldwide. The Portugal national football team is among the higher-rated national football teams in Europe and the world, having won 1 European Championship title in 2016 and 1 UEFA Nations League in 2018. The Primeira Liga, the country's top professional league, is the most widely known sport events in the country, where football teams such as SL Benfica, FC Porto, and Sporting CP are the main contenders. Other important clubs are Belenenses and Boavista. These 5 clubs are the only ones to have become champions of the Portuguese League. Portuguese football teams have performed well in the UEFA Champions League and UEFA Cup competitions, reaching regularly the last stages of those competitions and winning a number of trophies. Portugal has a large number of top football stadia. There are 3 UEFA 5-star stadia in Portugal along with many other featuring state-of-the-art facilities which are distributed across the country. Portugal national futsal team is one of the strongest teams in the world. The team now is rank 5 of world ranking and having won 1 UEFA Futsal Euro in 2018. The Portuguese league teams compete in Europe under UEFA, most notably in the UEFA Futsal Cup. The teams also compete in a domestic cup competition each year, called the Portuguese Cup. The winners of the 1A Divisão play the winners of the Portuguese Cup in the Portuguese Super Cup. Ricardinho is also one of the best futsal players of all time, getting the title of Best Futsal Player in the World for 4 times. Portugal has a successful roller hockey team, with 15 world titles and 20 European titles, making it the country with the most wins in both competitions. The most successful Portuguese roller hockey teams in international competitions, in terms of overall titles, are Porto, Benfica, Sporting CP and Oque de Barcelos. American football is played in a national league since 2009, initially with 5 teams. Between 2013 and 2016, the Liga Portuguesa de Futebol Americano was split in 2 conferences, North and South. The 8th edition, in 2016, had 10 teams. Lisboa Devils are the defending champions. Lisboa Navigators are the most successful team with 6 titles. Portugal has been traditionally strong in the sport of athletics in long-distance running, and is the birthplace for a number of successful athletes including Rosa Mota, Carlos Lopes, Fernanda Ribeiro, and Manuela Machado. Rui Silva and sprinter Francis Obiquelu have won several gold, silver and bronze medals in European, World and Olympic Games competitions. Nade Gomes is a multiple world and European champion in the women's pentathlon and long jump events, and Nelson Evera and Pedro Pichardo are Olympic champions in the triple jump. The country has a strong reputation in cross-country running. It hosts 2 of the world's foremost annual meetings, the Almond Blossom Cross Country and Eras International Cross Country. It has hosted the IAAF World Cross Country Championships twice, and Carlos Lopes and Albertina Diaz are both former world champions of the sport. For country's main basketball clubs are SL Benfica and FC Porto. Both teams have competed at several European Cups in the past years. Portugal's national basketball team had its best performance at the 2007 Eurobasket, where it left behind heavily favored competition such as Turkey and Serbia. Portugal became in the later years one of the most successful countries in this sport, winning many medals at European and World Championships.